Welcome to Eerie Trail, where forgotten roads, haunted silence, and long shadows tell stories no one else dares to remember. If you're drawn to the strange, the lost, and the unsettling, you're in the right place. Like the video, drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories that don't just scare, they stay with you. They said the lake had no bottom, of course. That wasn't true. Couldn't be true, but it's what folks around Harper's Bend like to say. It made for good bar talk, good stories around fire pits, good warnings for kids too young to understand real danger. Don't go swimming in Lake Merrow after dark, they'd say. It pulls at your ankles. Here's your name. Wants you to stay. Most people laughed it off, called it an old fisherman's tale. Said it came from some old Choctaw legend or a forgotten settler diary nobody could ever find. But for Jess Whitley, the lake wasn't just a story. It was where her sister disappeared. Summer of 1998. Jess was 16, Marnie was 12. They were camping with their uncle outside of Harper's Bend, a nowhere speck in central Texas, hot as hell and humid enough to choke a horse. They'd been swimming in the lake that afternoon, nothing strange, until Marnie screamed. Not playfully. Not teasing, a real scream. Deep, terrified, raw. Jess had turned just in time to see her sister's head vanish beneath the water. No splash, no struggle, just gone, like something yanked her straight down. They dragged the lake for days. Nothing. No body, no clothes, no trace. It was like the lake swallowed her whole, and Jess never recovered. 27 years later she came back. Not for closure. Not for healing. She didn't believe in that crap. She came back because the dreams had started again. They began on her birthday. She dreamed of the lake, black and glassy, stretching on forever under a moonless sky. Something was whispering beneath the surface. It sounded like Marnie. It sounded like herself. Come home. Jess told herself it was just guilt, unresolved trauma. She saw a therapist, took the meds, but the dreams only got louder. And then one morning, she woke up standing in the kitchen, holding her car keys, purse packed, shoes on, with no memory of getting out of bed. The next day, she was in Harper's Bend. It hadn't changed much. One gas station. A diner where the food still tasted like grease and burned memories. The sheriff's office was boarded up. Half the population looked half dead, like the place had been waiting too long for something. Jess rented a cabin on the edge of Lake Merrow. It was empty season, mid-September. Too hot for tourists, too late for campers. She was the only soul on that stretch of shoreline. The lake looked the same, still black, still glassy, still silent. That night, she dreamed of the dock again. The old creaky one where she and Marnie used to fish for catfish with bits of hot dog. In the dream, the dock went on forever, vanishing into the mist. She walked it. At the end, something waited in the water. It wasn't her sister. Not anymore. It wore Marnie's face, but the eyes were empty, lips swollen, skin bloated like something waterlogged and left too long. And when it spoke, Jess felt it inside her head. You left me here. She woke up gasping, floor soaked in sweat. The cabin was silent, but the door was wide open. Wet footprints led from the threshold to the foot of her bed. The next day, she went into town, asked around about the lake. Most folks didn't talk. Some pretended not to recognize her. An old man sitting outside the laundromat finally muttered, "Still whispering to folks, is it?" Jess nodded. "You know what it is?" He didn't answer. Just spat in the dirt and said, "Ain't no. Lake should be that deep in limestone country. Ain't natural." She went back to the cabin and stared at the lake until sunset. At dusk, she saw lights under the surface, not reflections, not fish. Lights like candles flickering down in the dark. She followed them, walked the dock barefoot, sat at the edge, toes in the water. The air was still. The woods behind her silent. Not even crickets, and then she heard it again. Her name, not shouted, not whispered. Thought Dot inside her head. Jess, it's cold down here. She should have run. She knew that. Every part of her screamed to move. But she didn't, because the truth is, she wanted to believe it was Marnie. Even now. Even after everything, she dove in. The water closed around her like warm syrup, deeper than she remembered. The light vanished almost instantly. But the voices didn't. They grew louder. Hundreds, thousands. All whispering her name. When she opened her eyes underwater, they were there. The faces floating around her, eyes open, mouths frozen in scream or song. Men, women, children, all dead. All waiting. And Marnie at the center. Her little sister's arms reached out. Come stay. Jess tried to scream, but the water poured in. She woke on the shore at sunrise. Naked, soaked, shaking. Her tongue tasted like copper. Her hands were pruned and raw. On her thigh, scratched deep into her skin, were 4 letters. Stay that day. She tried to leave Harper's Bend. The road looped. No matter which way she drove, it brought her back to the lake. She tried to hike out. The forest didn't end. Her phone died. Her radio wouldn't work. And at night, she heard Marnie singing from the water. She stopped eating, stopped drinking. The lights under the lake never stopped pulsing. On the 12th night, she walked into the water again. She didn't come back. Now, they say if you camp on the west shore of Lake Merrow, you'll see her just after midnight. Standing ankle deep in the shallows, hair drifting around her like black kelp. Eyes wide and empty. She doesn't move. She just watches. And if you call out to her, if you say her name, she smiles and whispers one word. Stay. And if you do, well, they say the lake always makes room for one more. The dogs started disappearing first. Not all at once, and not in any obvious pattern. Just gone. 1 from the gas station, 2 from the trailer park up the hill, 1 from old Mrs. Helton's place down by the pecan grove. People said coyotes, or maybe a mountain lion drifting in from the canyon. But folks around Frio Junction knew better. This kind of thing had happened before. Frio Junction wasn't on most maps. If you blinked on Route 83 between Leakey and Uvalde, you'd miss it. A dusty scar of a town, 1 feed store, 2 bars, and a handful of shotgun houses with sagging porches and rusted-out trucks in the yards. The kind of place where people minded their own business, especially when strange things started happening. Landon Avery moved back to Frio after his dad died. He hadn't wanted to, but the house on Coyote Hill was still in the family, and the oil rig job up in Amarillo had dried up. So he loaded his tools and his mutt Bishop into the truck and came back home. The place was worse than he remembered. Hotter, quieter, more rot in the bones. The house itself wasn't much. 2 beds, single bath, wood paneling warped from decades of South Texas sun. The fields behind it stretched out toward the hills like a forgotten quilt, cracked mesquite, brittle grass, and out in the distance, the strange patch of cedar trees that had never grown quite right. His daddy had called it the Dead Acre, said. The ground there was sour, said nothing would take root except cedar, and even they twisted wrong. And when Landon was a boy, his dad forbade him to go out there, said it wasn't safe. Landon figured it was superstition. The old man had 100 stories about blood in the dirt, fires that burned without smoke, lights that moved against. The wind up at stories didn't pay bills, and Landon didn't have time for ghost tales until Bishop vanished. It was a Tuesday morning, late October. Cool enough to work outside without sweating your skin off. Landon let Bishop out like usual. The dog took off across the field, tail up, chasing grasshoppers like he had 1,000 times before. He never came back. Landon searched for hours, called his name until his voice was gone, walked the whole fence line, checked every ditch, every deer blind, every hollowed stump. No blood. No tracks. Just nothing. Except for the dead acre. Standing at the edge of it, Landon felt something strange. The air was heavier, still but full of pressure, like the kind you feel right before a tornado or a stroke. He didn't go in. Not that day. That night, he heard barking. Not close distant, echoing, but familiar. Bishop. He got up, threw on jeans and boots, grabbed a flashlight, and followed the sound across the fields. The barking led him straight to the edge of the dead acre. And then it stopped. No rustle, no whimper, just silence. He stood there for a long time, staring into the crooked trees, wondering why the flashlight beam seemed to bend when it hit the edge of the cedar grove, like the light didn't want to go in. He went back inside and didn't sleep. The next night, it wasn't barking. He heard. It was scratching at the back door. Slow, deliberate, like claws dragging wood. He rushed to the kitchen, flipped on the porch light. No one was there, but the door frame had long, fresh gouges carved into it. Too high for a raccoon, too deep for a cat. That was when the dream started. Always the same. Landon was a boy again, barefoot, standing in the middle of the dead acre. The trees shifted and breathed like lungs. Something crouched just beyond them, something huge, but never seen. Just the sound of it moving, pacing, waiting. And in the dream, his father's voice always said the same thing. You let it out, boy. It was sleeping, and you woke it. On the fifth night, Landon tried to leave. He packed his tools, slammed the tailgate shut, and peeled out down the gravel road, but every mile he drove, the signs repeated. FRIO Junction, population 86. Over and over. He passed the same gas station 3 times. When he stopped for gas, the pump wouldn't take his card. The old man behind the counter just stared at him without blinking, chewing a toothpick down to nothing. You stirred it. The man muttered, "Now it's hungry again." Landon drove back to the house in a fog, not even realizing he'd done it. The fields were dead when he got home. Not just dry, dead, black, wilted, grass gone to ash. The cedar grove shimmered at the horizon. Bigger somehow. Closer. That night, Bishop came home, or something that looked like Bishop. It scratched at the door like before. Sat down on the porch when Landon opened it. Same eyes. Same tail. Same dirty collar, but the eyes were wrong. Too human. Too, knowing. It didn't bark. Didn't whine. Just watched him. All night. And when Landon tried to go to bed, he heard more scratching on the roof, under the floorboards. From the attic that had been nailed shut for 30 years, something was moving in the walls. He didn't sleep. He couldn't. He boarded the windows. Stacked furniture against the doors. Sat in the center of the living room with a shotgun across his lap. When the sun came up, he was still sitting there. And outside, the fields were full of animals. Dogs, cats, goats, raccoons. All standing silent at the edge of the dead acre, watching. Wrong. Mouths open too wide. Legs bent backwards. Fur sloughing off like wet paper. And every single one with eyes just like Bishop's. The shotgun didn't help. The phone lines didn't work, and the trees kept creeping closer. By the time the sheriff came for a welfare check, called by a distant cousin who hadn't heard from Landon in weeks, the house was empty. No signs of struggle. No blood. No note. But in the middle of the living room floor was a dog collar. Bishop's. Charred black. And out behind the house, the cedar grove had doubled in size. Now, locals avoid the hill. Say the trees move if you're not watching. Say some nights. You can hear barking, dozens of dogs, all crying out from the dead acre. And if you walk too close, You might hear a man's voice whispering from the dark, "I didn't mean to wake it. I just wanted my dog back." But it's too late. Whatever was sleeping in that patch of sour ground. It's awake now, and it's still hungry. This is Texas here. The dirt doesn't forget. In Red Ant Crossing, Texas, the wind talked if you listened long enough. It whispered things no one wanted to hear. Mostly, folks just ignored it, kept their heads down, got through the heat, didn't ask questions about the things that sometimes went missing in the night or the ones that came back wrong. Population 402, last anyone counted. One Baptist church, one Dairy Queen, one half-abandoned strip mall that used to have a radio shack and a pawn shop full of broken guitars. The town sat way out past Pecos, where the dirt turned red and the sky stretched like it was trying to forget. The ground. They found the church bell full of blood in the second week of August. No bodies. No trails, just the bell. Every inch inside coated thick with clotted, blackening blood. No explanation. No one claimed it. The sheriff had it cleaned out, but the cleaning crew quit after an hour, saying the inside walls were still warm. Sighed. They heard humming from the metal old hymns that no one had sung in years. That's when the Holloways came back. The Holloway family had lived in a brick ranch house just outside town, right where the land started to lift toward the Guadalupe foothills. They were good people, mostly. Kept to themselves. Raised goats, homeschoolers, wore denim everything, and kept a shotgun by the door like any respectable West Texas household. 10 years ago, they vanished, all 6 of them. One night, the neighbors heard screaming, long, strangled wails, then silence. By morning, the house was empty, doors wide open, goats wandering the yard, no signs of violence, no blood, just a scorched ring of earth in the back pasture and the air smelling like ozone and rot. Locals said it was cult stuff, or meth, or worse. The house sat empty ever since, until the lights came on again. A week after the bell. First the porch light, then the kitchen window, then the whole house glowing with that unnatural yellow of cheap fluorescent bulbs and something else behind them. Movement. Shadows that didn't line up with the windows. At first, people thought squatters. But when the sheriff sent Deputy Elgin to check it out, he came back pale, sweating, and said the place was full of mirrors that weren't right. Not reflections, he kept saying, more like windows. Like they were looking out. Nobody pressed him for details. The very next morning, he quit the force, left town. Just packed a bag and drove east like something was chasing him. That's when Lily McCown started seeing the girl. Lily worked at the Alsops, pulling graveyard shifts. She was 19, saving up for community college in San Angelo, lived in a trailer with her mom and a sick older brother. She wasn't prone to stories, hadn't touched a drug in her life. No reason to lie, but she said the same thing every night for 4 nights straight. There's a girl in the parking lot, she told her manager, wearing all white, staring at the security camera. They checked the footage. There was nothing there. But the weird thing was, the camera feed did flicker, precisely at the times Lily said the girl was there. The footage jumped, skipped. For 2 seconds each time, just a frame or two, blank static, followed by something like a face stretched too wide, then back to normal. The tech guy said it was interference. Lily said the girl's mouth never moved, but she heard her, over the loudspeaker, she said. Except the system wasn't on. She said the girl told her, they came back wrong. Don't look in their eyes. On the 5th night, Lily stopped showing up for work. Her manager found her car in the lot, driver's door open, keys in the ignition, purse on the passenger seat, but no Lily. That same night, the church bell rang again, even though the rope had been cut and the mechanism jammed with rusted metal wedges. The sound was hollow, warped, like something ringing from inside a cave underwater. And the next morning, the Holloways came to town. They walked up Main Street, barefoot, wearing the same clothes they vanished in 10 years ago, smiling, no one could meet their eyes, not even the preacher. He tried, shouted scripture, doused them with oil, even tried to slap the father, Mr. Holloway, across the face, but his hand stopped an inch from the man's cheek, just froze in the air. And then the preacher screamed, a long, howling, animal scream, like something was being torn out of him from the inside. He collapsed, eyes rolled back. When the ambulance came, they found him catatonic, still alive, but wouldn't speak, wouldn't blink, just wept. The Holloways moved back into their house that night, turned on every light, and folks started hearing music from the fields, not music anyone could recognize. Too many notes, too many layers. It didn't sound like any instrument that should exist, but it made your bones want to crawl away from your body. The next week, more people disappeared. Kids, old folks, dogs. One guy walked into the bar, ordered. A lone star looked out the window and dropped dead on the spot, beer still in hand. When they opened his mouth, it was packed with hair and dirt. The soil around the Holloway house began to pulse. That's what people said, pulse, like it was breathing. Like something buried too deep for too long was pushing against the earth. From below, waiting for the right night, and then the wind picked up, hot wind. Wet wind. Wind that carried voices no one understood. Not in English, not in Spanish, not in any language they'd ever heard, but somehow everyone knew what it meant. It meant the town was out of time. The final thing anyone heard from Red. Ant Crossing was a voicemail left on a gas company dispatcher's answering machine. It's mostly static, but right in the middle, you can hear a woman whispering, she says. They were never people. They wore the skin for a while, but it got too tight, so they came back to stretch it. Then silence. No one will go near Red Ant Crossing now. The roads have been washed out twice. Drones sent over the area lose signal. Maps blur that section of the county. Birds don't fly near it. No crickets. No cattle. But if you pull off the highway near mile marker 214 on a hot night, you might hear something carried on the wind, something that isn't music, but makes your ears ring and your blood throb just the same. And if you see a barefoot family standing in the dark with smiles too wide, do not stop. Do not speak. Do not meet their eyes. They remember you, and they're patient.